Noah Bennett never expected to fall in love with handwriting. Not a face, not a voice, not a smile across a classroom, just handwriting. It started on an ordinary Monday in October when rain tapped softly against the library windows and the heating. Worked just badly enough for everyone to keep their jackets on. The school library wasn't popular. Students came because teachers made them, not because they wanted to. Noah came because silence felt easier than conversation. He always sat in the back corner beneath a tall window where the afternoon sun never quite reached, reading books he rarely finished and pretending to study while mostly watching dust drift through light. That afternoon he borrowed an old copy of The Secret Garden. When he opened it at home, a folded piece of paper slipped onto his bedroom floor. At first he thought it was just an overdue notice. Instead, written in neat blue ink, were 8 words. I hope today was kinder than yesterday was. No name, no explanation, nothing else. He smiled without realizing it. For some reason, it didn't feel random. He folded it carefully and slipped it back inside the book. The next afternoon, curiosity got the better of him. He returned the novel earlier than necessary and wandered through the shelves until another book caught his eye. Halfway through chapter 3, another note. Different paper. Same handwriting. Some people carry storms so quietly, nobody notices they're drowning. Noah stared at it for several minutes, then looked around the empty library as though someone might still be watching. Nobody was. Only rows of books. Old shelves, quiet fluorescent lights, and one girl sitting several aisles away with her head lowered over a notebook. He didn't know her name. She didn't look up once. For nearly 3 weeks, the notes continued. Never in every book. Never predictable. Sometimes only 1 sentence. Sometimes 2. Never signed. Never asking for anything, just thoughts that sounded too honest to have been written for strangers. I wonder how many people become funny because nobody noticed they were sad. Some apologies arrive years after forgiveness has already left. Growing up is realizing your parents were pretending to know what they were doing. Noah started collecting them in a small envelope hidden inside his desk drawer. He didn't know why. They simply felt important, like tiny pieces of someone trying not to disappear. Eventually, he did something he wasn't sure was allowed. Inside the back page of a returned history book, he left a note of his own. Just 1 sentence. Whoever you are, thank you. For 4 days, nothing happened. He assumed the experiment had failed. Then another note appeared. Different book, same careful handwriting. You're the first person who ever wrote back. Noah read that sentence 5 times. Then 6. Something about it hurt in a place he couldn't explain. The exchange continued, still anonymous, still hidden inside books. Weeks became months. Winter arrived quietly. Without ever discussing names, they somehow learned about each other. She loved cloudy mornings because sunny days felt like expectations. He always skipped school assemblies because crowds made him uncomfortable. She listened to piano music while studying. He drew tiny constellations in the corners of his notebooks whenever he couldn't focus. They shared favorite novels, favorite words, favorite places to walk after rain, but never identities. There was something strangely safe about being known without being seen. One afternoon, Noah found a note longer than usual. Sometimes I sit 3 tables away from people and wonder what version of me exists inside their minds. I think everyone is misunderstood in a slightly different language. He looked up instinctively. 3 tables away sat the same quiet girl, dark sweater, brown hair tied loosely, reading without turning many pages. For one impossible second he wondered, then immediately dismissed the thought. It couldn't be that simple. Could it? As Christmas approached, the notes became rarer, shorter, less certain. Then one day he opened a novel and found only 6 words. I think I'm becoming afraid again. Noah didn't know what that meant. He wrote back anyway. "You don't have to explain everything." The reply arrived 3 days later. "Thank you for not asking me to." January brought snow and silence. No notes. No replies. Nothing. For 2 weeks, Noah checked every book he borrowed. Nothing. By the 3rd week, he realized he missed someone whose face he didn't even know, which felt impossible, yet painfully real. Then, finally, a folded page. Only one line. If stories ever become real, they usually become complicated too. Below it, for the first time ever, something else. Tomorrow, 4:15, History section. If you want, no signature, no explanation. Noah barely slept. The next afternoon he arrived 20 minutes early. Every sound seemed louder, every clock slower. Students wandered in and out carrying backpacks and conversations that suddenly felt very far away. 4, 10, 4, 12, 4, 14, then footsteps. A girl walked into the aisle carrying 2 books against her chest. She stopped when she saw him. He recognized her instantly, the quiet girl from 3 tables away, the one he had barely looked at because she always seemed content existing unnoticed. She looked just as nervous. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Then she laughed softly. Not because anything was funny, because she didn't know what else to do. "I'm Claire," she said. Her voice was gentler than he'd imagined. "Noah," she nodded. "I know," he blinked. "You signed 1 note once." He smiled despite himself. "I thought I covered that." "You crossed it out." "I did." I could still read it. For the first time in months, both of them laughed. Small, honest. Real Claire Morgan wasn't mysterious. She wasn't dramatic. She was simply shy in exactly the same language Noah was. They sat at a table near the window for almost an hour. Talking wasn't as easy as writing. There were awkward pauses, interrupted sentences, nervous smiles. Sometimes they both reached for the same silence because silence had always been easier. But every now and then, one of them would accidentally say exactly the right thing, and the other would immediately understand. No performance. No pretending. No trying to seem more interesting than they were. Just honesty arriving in careful pieces. As they packed up to leave, Claire reached into her notebook. She unfolded one last piece of paper. "I wrote this 3 weeks ago," she admitted, "but I never left it in a book." She handed it to him. Noah unfolded it. Only one sentence. "I hope whoever finds my words is exactly the kind of person who reads slowly." He looked up. Claire was already smiling. Not the practiced smile people wear for photographs, the tiny one that appears when someone realizes they no longer have to hide. Noah folded the note carefully, then slipped it into his jacket pocket instead of a book. Years later, he would forget the titles of almost every novel they borrowed. He would forget what either of them wore that winter afternoon. He would forget the weather, but he would never forget the strange miracle of being known by someone who had first fallen in love with the quiet parts of him. And whenever people asked them how they met, Claire would always smile before answering. "We met in a library." Then she'd glance at Noah and quietly add, "But really, we met in the margins."